Hey guys, it's Jessie at Plaid. Welcome to this month's edition of Let's Paint Live. We're here at Plaid to paint our painting this month, Evening Cherry Blossoms. This is our Let's Paint Live where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. So when you're finished with your painting, please post it with the hashtag PlaidCrafts. For supplies, you can find the link below this video to get all the supplies you need. So we hope you're all being safe and doing well at home. And when you're finished with this painting, like I said, please hashtag PlaidCrafts. And we're also starting our Get Crafty Challenge where you can tag 5 of your friends and challenge them to post their paintings or post another craft they're doing to stay busy at home. So let's get started. So the supplies we're using tonight, we're going to be using our Folk Art Acrylic Baby Pink. We've got Navy Blue, Apple Red, Wicker White, and Coffee Bean. I've also got my 12 by 12 wood canvas. I've got our 10-piece variety set of folk art brushes. We have our water basin, paper towels, palette paper, and then tonight we're also going to be painting with some cotton swabs. So we're using cotton swabs and we're going to bundle them with our rubber bands. I can show you how to do that in just a second. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 5 cotton swabs, I've got 4 here, and you're going to bundle them together. Just tie them up together in the middle with a rubber band. So you've got a little bundle, and we're going to actually paint our cherry blossoms with these little bundles of cotton swabs. So hopefully it's something you have at home. You've got whatever brushes you've got at home right now, and you can paint with something a little bit different this time. So you want your bundles to just look like that. I've got a bunch already bundled up here so we can get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab some navy blue. I'm going to put about a quarter-sized amount on my palette. And then using my 3/4 inch flat brush, this is a brand new brush, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse off some of the sizing so it's nice and soft. Make sure it's dry before I put any paint on it. I don't want my brush too wet. And we are just going to start base coating our wood canvas. So I'm going to start at the bottom because that's where we're going to paint our trunk, and since we're trying to do this in just about an hour, we want it to dry pretty quickly so that we can start painting right on top of it. So I'll start at the bottom, work my way up, so that way the bottom will dry first, and we are able to start painting our trunk right away. So just a nice even coat of Folk Art Acrylic in navy, and again I'm using my 3/4 inch flat brush. We just want a nice even coat. You can see you only need 1 coat for full coverage when you're using Folk Art Acrylic paint on this wood canvas, which is why I love this paint and I love this canvas so much. It has such great coverage. So just a nice even coat. We don't want a ton of paint on here because, like I said, we want it to dry nice and quickly so that we can continue painting on it. But if you do end up putting a little more paint than you mean to, if you have kind of a thick coat on there, you can feel free to pull out your hairdryer and give it a dry when we're done base coating it so that we can keep painting our cherry blossom tree right on top of it. If you feel like your brush is dragging a little bit, you can dip it in a little bit of water. I feel like I always say this during our paint nights, but sometimes when you're base coating the canvas like this, it starts to drag a little bit because these canvases are not primed, and I didn't prime my canvas ahead of time, so the paint absorbs into it really quickly, which makes it dry really quickly, which I like when we're trying to paint painting so quickly. But sometimes it can make your brush drag a little bit because the canvas absorbs the paint so fast. And again, I'm just doing a nice even coat of navy blue using my 3/4 inch flat brush. Let me move this, give myself a little bit of wiggle room. And again, we started at the bottom, we're working our way to the top so that it can dry quickly so we can start painting the trunk of our tree right on top of this as soon as we finish base coating. I'm going to grab some more navy blue. This is a really fun painting, sort of kick off spring, something fun to do while you're at home. This is a great painting for kids too because it's really fun to paint with the cotton swabs. You'll see towards the end It's a really fun painting for all age kids to do. You can help them, they can paint their background, and if they're smaller, you can help them paint their trunks, and then just let them kind of go at it, painting their cherry blossoms with the cotton swabs. It's a really fun technique, something really different we haven't done before. Again, I'm just doing a nice even coat of navy blue, nothing fancy, just a flat coat to cover our canvas with some color. Oh, my canvas is sliding around a lot this month. Okay, so I've got a nice coat there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wash my brush off. Oops, I'm splashing water all over. I'm just going to touch that up real quick. Okay, I'm going to carefully wash my brush off. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a liner brush. This is our #1 liner brush that comes in the Folk Art Variety Set. Any small round brush or any liner brush will do for this part. And I'm going to grab just a little bit of wicker white. Just a tiny bit. I'm just going to put a little spot of it onto my palette paper. We don't need a lot for this. And I'm going to wet my liner brush. I'm going to put a lot of water onto my palette paper because we're going to sort of draw with this white, sort of like it's like pen and ink. We're going to use this as a pen. If you feel more comfortable, if you want to dry your canvas and then use a pencil or a marker or something, if that is more comfortable for you, feel free to do that. But we're just going to go ahead right now and continue using paint. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to outline our tree trunk. So you can see it sort of starts at the bottom and it goes right, and then there's some branches sort of shooting off of that main trunk. So you can really be creative with this. Feel free to follow my design, but you can sort of make your branches go in any direction as long as they start at the bottom and then sort of fan out. So here, I'll show you the way that I'm going to paint it. I'm going to start by deciding where I want my trunk to start. We can start about center. So that'll be either side of my trunk. And then I'm going to paint it going up, and I think I'm going to do a sort of a sharp curve that way. So I'm going to paint it. You can see I just have a really light line. I don't want a ton of paint on there because I don't want it running or have to touch it up too much, but although we always can. And then I have this one sort of go up and make that sort of shape right there. So we're going to go this way. And I'm going to bring that back down. And again, we're going to cover all these top parts with our cherry blossoms. So if it gets a little funny at the top, don't stress about that at all. We just want to make sure that this part is the way that we want it. Once it gets to the top though, that's all going to be covered up anyway. So I have a branch here. I think I'm going to end this branch here maybe. And then I'm going to have another branch coming out this way. And maybe that will branch off as well. And again, this part will all get covered up, so it does not need to be perfect. And then I'm going to have another branch coming out this way too, just to give some, because wherever there's going to be cherry blossoms, there should be branches, because that's where it's coming off of. So if it's kind of empty over here, it doesn't really make sense for us to paint cherry blossoms on it later. We probably need another branch coming out that way. That way we can paint more cherry blossoms, which is the really fun part. You're going to be glad you put more branches later on. We're sort of end those branches. I think maybe we'll have this guy coming up a little so that our cherry blossoms can reach up high. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Maybe another one here. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, just how you imagine that a tree trunk and branches would go. And again, the top parts are all going to be covered up with cherry blossoms. We just want to make sure that we have sort of something for the cherry blossoms to rest on so that our tree makes sense. Okay, so next we're going to grab some coffee bean, which is our dark brown color, and put about a nickel-sized amount on our palette. And I'm going to grab my number 12 flat brush. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse off some of that sizing because this is a new set of brushes. And we are just going to fill in our tree trunk using coffee bean. We're just going to do a flat coat of this right now, and then we can, if you get some blue in there, that's okay, because we're going to go in and we're going to add some shadows and highlights too. So if your painting is still pretty wet like mine is, don't worry about that. We just want to get this to look brown right now. And as you can see, I am going to try to cover up my white lines because I don't want to see that outline. I just want to see the full trunk. And we're just going to paint that in carefully using our number 12 flat brush and coffee bean. And again, if you feel more comfortable when you're painting this, you can pause the painting later on and take a hair dryer to your painting if you want your blue to be dry. If it sort of bugs you that some of the blue is mixing into the brown, you can feel free to do that too. It doesn't really bother me though, because I'm going to use blue to create some shadows anyway. So again, I'm just trying to cover up my white lines, going right over it with coffee bean. And all of the paints we're using tonight is part of our Let's Paint Live kit, which is a kit we have made for you to join us every month watching Let's Paint Live to paint along at home. So it's a set of 24 paints, and once you buy that kit, you will have all of the paints you need for every Let's Paint Live. You may need to, to replenish, your white or some of the popular colors later on, but as far as all the different colors go, you won't have to run out each month and buy new colors. You'll have them all at home in your set with the brushes included. So next month, for May Let's Paint Live, you can join us with that kit or go back and paint any of our Let's Paint Lives. So again, we're just filling in our tree trunk and branches, and I'm trying to cover up the white edges, and we are using our number 12 flat brush and coffee bean. Just a nice light coat, and I'm not too worried about the navy blue that's beneath this getting into my brown because we're going to use that for some of the shadows anyway. Try to smooth it out and get it as even as I can. You can see in these smaller parts I'm using my brush sideways. I'm holding it up so I can get those tips right there. I can use the chiseled edge of my flat brush. But if you feel more comfortable grabbing a liner brush or a small round brush to get into those small areas of the branches, you can feel free to do that too. I'm just sort of using the chiseled edge of my flat brush and letting the brush do the work for me. So now I've got a nice coat of coffee bean to cover up my tree trunk. I'm going to sort of go back and get some areas where it was extra blue and fill that in, try to even that out with some more coffee bean. And I like the way that looks. Okay, So I'm not going to clean my brush off. I'm going to wipe off some of the excess brown paint, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up some of my navy blue, just a little bit. I don't have a lot. I'm going to wipe off some of the excess. And we're going to start doing a dabbing motion on the underside of our branches where the shadow would be. So we're going to pretend like our light source is sort of coming down from up here, which means that everything coming up from the bottom right is going to be in shadow. So here, I'll show you. I'm going to dab some blue down here. That's where our shadow would be. And I'm just using really light dabbing motions. I'm just using the tip of my brush to create some shadow right on the underside of the tree here. And I'm sort of blending it into the brown. The brown's still wet, so we want it to blend in. So it really just looks like a darker brown. I'm going to do the same thing on all the other ones where, see, this one will be in shadow. This one's sort of behind that trunk. So I'm going to dab some navy blue there. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to separate those two there because I like how that branch is sort of behind the main trunk. I'm going to dab some blue, a little less maybe. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one up here. I want him to look like he's behind as well. So I'm going to, so you can see where I had my line before. I'm just refilling that in, repainting that. And all the beneath part of this branch, all the facing down, I'm going to dab some navy blue onto that. I'm going to dab some navy blue onto the underside of this guy here. And then I'm going to just wipe the excess paint off my brush, and I'm going to pick up some coffee bean, and I'm going to blend that in right along the edge where it needs to be blended a little better into the brown. So I don't want it to be too harsh of a difference between the navy blue and the brown, so I'm just going to go ahead and blend that in. I'm still just using the very tip of my brush. I'm using a really, really light pressure to just sort of softly blend those together. And this, again, is still my number 12 flat brush. And I'm just going to softly use the tip of my brush to blend that. Okay. So I am going to wash my brush now because I'm going to switch to white. And I don't want all of this dark paint on my brush while I'm trying to create my highlights. Make sure I get all the water off. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of white, work it into my brush, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the navy blue, but instead I'm going to go on the opposite side of the tree trunk and branches where the light would be hitting it, where there will be highlights. So I'm going to dab some white down this side. Oops, got some blue on there. And again, I'm just using the tip of my brush ever so lightly. And then we can go back and blend some of that in with our coffee bean, just like we did with the shadow parts. There'll be a highlight there. I'm just dabbing some white in. Definitely would be a highlight right here. Just on the top side of these branches. And then I'm going to wipe the excess white off, and I'm going to go ahead and blend that in with my coffee bean. Got a lot of blue down there, so I'm gonna wipe that off and blend that in. Just again, ever so softly using the tip of your flat brush. We're just blending that in gently. Oops, I picked up white instead of brown. So I'm gonna wipe that off. I'm gonna blend that in softly. Picking up more brown if you need it. You can see I'm wiping off the excess white. If I'm switching to brown, I don't want too much white on there because it sort of, white is always sort of overpowering. When you add white to any color, it usually looks more white than anything. It lightens it up really quickly. So I'm just blending that in. So you can see now we have some really nice shadows and highlights on our tree trunk. It makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wash my brush off. And you can see I didn't really pay much attention to these top branches. You might be wondering why I left those out. It's because we really are going to be covering all of that in cherry blossoms, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time making those look perfect and three-dimensional because you really won't see those much at all once the painting is finished. I got a fresh paper towel. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, I want this to sort of pop out from the background, want my tree trunk I should say, so I'm going to put some white around the edges to sort of make a glow around it, just to make, you can see here, just to make the trunk really pop off of the background. We're going to put in sort of that white glow looking effect. So we're going to do a similar technique to what we just did to create the highlights and shadows on our tree trunk. So I'm going to put a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm just going to start right at the edge, and I'm going to dab this right at the edge of my tree trunk. Just on the blue part, on the navy background, I'm going to dab some white. I put some up here too. And I'm going to do it on the other side as well. So I'm just going to, I'm right-handed, so I'm having to sort of, it's a little bit less natural of a movement than it was to pull from this end, but I'm having to sort of pull to the left. If you're left-handed, this side is probably easier than the other side. I'm starting at my tree trunk and I'm pulling out. Okay. So now that we have that in there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, while our paint is still wet, we're going to wipe off the excess white, and we're going to pick up some of that navy blue, and we're going to blend it in with the navy blue. So we're going to do the same motion right on top of it using our navy blue, and that's going to blend that white out and just make that area look lighter than the rest of the background. And you can continue to blend that into the rest of your navy by just adding more navy as you go until eventually it gets blurred all the way into just pure navy blue. And blend that as much or as little as you'd like. I'll do the same thing up here. And it looks like my white dried a little bit there, so I'm going to put some more white right there. It wasn't really, it sort of got covered up easily. I think that my white must have dried already. You can see how, again, how quickly this paint dries on our wood canvas. I'm going to sort of fix that line a little bit, smooth it out, and do the same thing over here. And again, if the white has dried already, feel free to add more white as you're blending. We didn't put very much, so it might be kind of dry already by now. I'm going to add a little more white because it did dry some. Clean up the edge there. I'm going to go back with my navy and blend that in. And this just creates some more interest to the background. Oops. It makes our tree trunk pop off of this flat navy a little bit more. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to wash my brush off, and we're getting to the fun part now. So as you can see here, like I said in the beginning, I've bundled together groups of 5 cotton swabs, and I just put a rubber band in the middle. I showed you guys how to do it in the beginning, but here I'll do another one just in case you missed that. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cotton swabs, and I just take a plain rubber band and I wrap it around the center. And hopefully this is something you've got at home, so you don't have to run to the store and get this. Hopefully you've got some rubber bands, or even a hair tie would work to put around your cotton swabs. Hopefully you've got. So I just put it, scoot it into the middle. So now I can paint with either end of this, and I've got a few here. it's good to have a few done ahead of time, because once the cotton swabs sort of get saturated in paint, they don't create as good of a texture anymore, so it's good to have a few of them set up. So we are going to go ahead and grab some baby pink. I'm going to put about a nickel-sized amount of baby pink onto my palette. So I'm going to grab one of my bundles of cotton swabs, and you can see I'm kind of pressing it this way because I want them all to be sort of the same height at the top. I don't want any to be, you know, too short or too high or too low. I want them to be sort of evenly aligned to the top, so that way I can get I can see all 5 of them when I'm starting to pounce them onto my canvas. So I'm going to grab a little bit of paint, not a lot, and I'm going to dab a lot off. If you're familiar with stenciling, it's sort of the same way you would load your stencil brush. And I'm going to focus mostly on my branches, because that's where my cherry blossoms would be, but I'm going to start just using a pouncing motion or a dabbing motion to go around and create my cherry blossoms. So you can see here. So you're just going to go dab, dab, dab. And you can see here, you can only see 3 or so. I guess I didn't get my Q-tips as even as I thought I did, but that's okay. I like all the randomness. So you can see they're sort of making the same shape over and over. So I'm going to turn it each time I go, so I get a different imprint and it looks more random. And this is how we're going to paint our cherry blossoms. We're going to start by going in with a lot of this baby pink. And I'm going to start by focusing, like I said, right on the branches. I want it to be nice and random, so I'm going to turn it as I go, adding more paint as I need. This is the fun part. This is such a fun activity to do. It's sort of mindless, and it's really great if you've got kids at home who are looking for some way to stay busy. This is a really, really fun painting for them. And like I said, hopefully you've already got all the supplies at home for this one. So I'm just going to try to make it sort of as random as I can. I'm going all over, and again, I'm first focusing on where my branches are, because that's where the cherry blossoms should be growing off of course. Grab some more baby pink. Sort of turning it as I go, making it as random as I can. You can have more in some place and less in others. It's totally up to you. Another idea is if you wanted to pull up a picture of a cherry blossom tree and sort of follow the way that they are situated on the branches. That's sort of what I did for my original painting. Just to make it look more realistic, I kind of wanted to see how the cherry blossoms sat and how they fell on the branches and on the trunk. So that could help to make your tree look a little bit more real as well. I always like to paint from reference when I can. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill in between a little bit. And again, I'm tilting my little Q-tip bundle every which way as I'm dabbing, so that I can get a random sort of stamped shape whenever it touches the canvas. I don't want it to all be the same over and over and over again, because that won't look as realistic. And if you feel like maybe you're not getting as good of a stamp anymore, maybe you want to switch to the other side of your cotton swabs, feel free to do that, or you can pick up another bundle that you've made. Mine's still looking okay though, so I'm going to hang on to this one and save the rest. I'm going to go down. And I'm going to make some that look like they're sort of drooping down off of the branches. I'm going to have them sort of come down a little. You can see there I just sort of made them go downward. Sort of look like bundles of cherry blossoms are sort of drooping off of the branches. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill it in here. I want my tree to be really full, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some more in between each of my branches. Again, though, I'm still sort of concentrating my cherry blossoms where the branches are, because of course that's where cherry blossoms would be if they're really growing out of a tree. So you can see this one's getting a little stringy and whatnot, so I'm going to put this one aside and start with a fresh bundle. I don't really like the way that's, you can see here, it sort of left that line there. I don't really like the way that looks, so that's why I'm starting with a fresh one. Oops, this one's sort of stringy too. You can see each bundle makes a totally different stamped shape, which is really fun. You can kind of play around with each different bundle and see which one makes the best shape in your opinion. I actually like this one even better than the first one. Okay. So when you feel like you've got enough of these pink cherry blossoms, you can add as much or as little as you'd like. I feel like I'm sort of coming to a good place with the pink, so I'm going to set this down. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my apple red. Any red will do though. Any red paint you've got. And I'm going to get a fresh thing of cotton swabs, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of red, and I'm going to dab it off. And we are going to do this sort of quickly because you want the pink to stay wet so the red blends in. We're going to add just a little bit of red here and there so that it looks like just like darker areas of cherry blossoms. So of course if you wanted a darker pink you would add red, and so we're going to sort of blend this red into some of the areas so it starts to look like a darker pink. Just in a few areas, maybe towards the bottom of branches, maybe these cherry blossoms would be in shadow. Just where you think it needs a little pop of color. And I'm even going to dip this one back into the pink, and I can blend it into my red a little bit. See how pretty that looks? It just creates sort of a darker pink or a more vibrant pink when you blend it into the red like that. And again, just like the pink, you can add as much or as little of this red as you'd like. I'm going to keep adding pink so my branches look really, really full. You can kind of go back and forth between the red and the pink, just sort of blending them together and playing and seeing where you like the colors to be. And again, I need to make sure I'm moving my cotton swabs back and forth, sort of twisting them as I'm stamping so that I get a different impression each time, a different stamp. I want a really, really full cherry blossom tree, so I'm going to really fill in these areas with pink. It's a really relaxing technique. That's a little bit more red maybe. And sort of the more you bounce in the same area, the more blended you can get it to be. So if you sort of go over and over and over in the same spot, it'll really start to blend that area together. Probably the hardest part about this painting is going to be deciding when to stop with all of your stamping because it's so fun. You just want to keep going, but there is going to be a stopping point. You don't want to overdo it, that's for sure. Set this one aside, and I'm going to pick up a new one, And I'm going to get some white. I think I'm gonna add some more white to my palette though, because this one I have from before is a little bit watery. So I'm gonna add some wicker white. And I'm gonna add some highlights to my cherry blossoms. I don't want a ton of paint on here, so I'm gonna offload quite a bit. But I'm just gonna create some areas where the light is hitting them, or maybe they're not quite fully in bloom and they're not quite as pink yet. Some lighter areas of pink. We can do the same thing we did with the red. We're gonna go ahead and we can add in our white, and then we can add in some pink right on top of it to sort of blend it in to the rest of our cherry blossoms. So it just looks like a lighter pink. If you don't have baby pink at home, you can even just use only red and white and really blend them together, because that will of course create a pink in between them. So if you're limited on supplies at home right now and you've just got red and white, you can absolutely use those without any pink. I just like this baby pink. It made it a little bit easier and faster for us. I'm gonna add some more to my palette. But don't forget, you can go online and you can buy our Let's Paint Live kit on Amazon, and you can have it delivered straight to your house. So you can paint this painting along with us from home, or you can join us next month, or you can go back and paint any of our Let's Paint Lives from previous months. We've got dozens of paintings up there, so it's a really great activity for you to do at home while everybody's sort of home together crafting. Okay. I'm gonna put some more out towards the top. It feels like they're getting sort of chunky, and I don't really like that. So I'm gonna create some more, sort of disperse them and make them look a little bit more random. They kind of started to get really clustered in some areas, and I don't like that as much. So another thing you can do is, if you sort of felt like you got way too much of a color of pink or white or whatever it is in one area, you can go back, see if these are sort of thick areas. If you wanted to make those a little bit more sparse, you could go back with your cotton swabs and some navy, and you could sort of bring that navy back, and it makes them look like they're a little bit further apart. So you can do the same thing with some navy over it, and that sort of makes them look like they're more separated, your cherry blossoms. Sort of splits them up. All right. So guys, whenever you feel like you're done painting your cherry blossoms, don't forget to sign your painting. And please post it on Facebook or on Instagram with the hashtag Plaid Crafts. We'd love to see what you're painting. But that is our evening cherry blossoms. So like I said, please share your painting with us and take part in our Get Crafty Challenge. Post your painting with hashtag Plaid Crafts and hashtag Get Crafty Challenge, and tag 5 of your friends and challenge them to do the same thing with their paintings or whatever crafts they're doing at home right now. So please keep an eye on Facebook for further inspiration and for our painting for May's Let's Paint Live. And thanks for watching. Bye.